Hello and welcome to Furious Driving. And the last time we saw my Alfa 145, it was rather ignominiously being towed behind an AA truck all the way home because it was refusing to run. What had happened was I'd gone over a speed hump, it had tripped the fuel cutoff valve, and it had also done something nasty to the inside of the immobiliser ECU, and the immobiliser ECU would no longer unimmobilise, it was permanently immobilised. Nothing would mobilise this car for love nor money. So I spoke to Jamie at Go Italia about this, and it's a fairly common problem. This box lives underneath the dashboard by the ignition barrel, and this is the immobiliser for the car. It had broken. He recommended sending it off to a place called ECU Decode, which is a company he uses all the time. So I did. I spoke to them, posted it off to them. They also required my keys. I sent them the aerial which goes around the key ignition barrel, and this, rather preciously, is the actual ECU that makes the car work. And what they've now done is taken the immobiliser sensor out of this, so it no longer looks for the immobiliser, and it will start. If I whack this back in the car now, it should actually run. So the ECU lives on this little metal platen down here beside the engine, and it's held on just by 3 bolts, which the magnetic tray is coming in handy already. So I'll just put this back in here, reconnect the battery and see if I've got life. Now honestly, I do hate messing around with anything with the ECU because I'm always worried that the cables are going to snag or break, or I'm going to do something which I don't realise is a problem until I go to turn it on and I've destroyed something impossible to repair. There are 3 screws, or bolts I should say, that hold this down, which is good because it means you can't get it the wrong way around. If there's 4 equally laid out bolts, it would be quite easy to return the wrong one of these big cables to the wrong one. That needs a very tiny spanner. I'll go and find a very tiny spanner. An 8mm spanner is absolutely tiny on this thing. I can't remember if I showed myself taking this thing off, but these new extension bars are absolutely perfect for this kind of the job. Well, my job's good. And on go the cables, which hopefully only go one way around. Yeah, as long as you line them up right, they go in and grip absolutely spot on. So this would normally live down here, attached to this post by this connector here. It's pretty much surplus to requirements and can go in the bin, unless I needed to clamp this thing down, which is of course possible. This aerial, the aerial reader is also surplus to requirements, but cosmetically I do need it because there's a big hole in the car trim without it, so that goes back on just to fill the gap. So I'll snap that back in place. Right, so let's see if this does actually start the car. No. Okay, that's not good. What else is disconnected? So we've got fuel. The injector light's gone out. Heard the fuel pump running in the background. Why aren't you starting, car? Let's make sure nothing's disconnected in the front. Now what I was about to say was that in theory any key can start this car now as long as it's cut to the right shape for the ignition barrel, because the transponder is no longer doing anything, which is really quite useful because transponder keys are impossible to find these days. They're not a thing that exists anymore. So I've had a spare key cut a while ago just to open the car, but it wouldn't start the car previously because it didn't have the transponder chip in it. By the time you see this video, the plan was to get this car immobilised with a modern Thatcham Cat 1 or 2 immobiliser, because obviously having no immobiliser is very silly if you don't want your car to be taken. So I've taken the factory one out, but I'm going to fit an aftermarket better one in there. Unfortunately, I don't seem to need it because the car doesn't start, but I don't know why. While I ponder that, I will fit this correctly doored warning panel, so very kindly sent in by James from the Alfa Owner Club. because this is from a 146 and I've got a 145. Just need a couple of Allen keys to get in the back of that. So while I'm thinking about that, I can also pop this out, because he also sent me this bar, which is useful for... that's why I was baffled by this. There are two screw holes at either end of this bar, which meant to hold the radio up. There's nothing for that to screw into. Something is snapped off inside here. That is interesting. That's why my radio falls out and you can't screw that to anything. I'm better off with a double DIN unit, aren't I? Thanks, James, it nearly worked. Right, this unscrews pretty easily with a whatever size Allen key that is. Out come the 3 elegant plugs. Oops. Shush radio. I do like how all 3 of these plugs are so massively different in every way possible. Alright, so that one comes out. And this one, with the correct number of doors on it, goes in. Panel light goes in there. Cool, that snaps back in there now. Or it should snap back in there. Missing plugs. That's why it's not snapping into place. I am missing a pair of panel trim clips. We do have the right number of open doors now, which is a minor improvement. If you take the actual emptyable ashtray part out, you should be able to screw, well, you can screw through, and that's why I've got no thing gripping it in. Where's the screwdriver gone? Right, so there we have 2 screws, and I did find the panel clip lying on the carpet, so that's now properly screwed back together again. Dashboard is correct and doesn't rattle apart from that, which will rattle, so I'll put that in there. Jolly good. Just need to figure out something with this thing now. And if anyone needs an Alfa 146, one of these hazard warning display panel things, let me know. It's going spare. So I don't know why this won't start. Some broken wire, some burst fuse or something. I don't know, bloody thing. Alex Dupe, if you're watching and you want to buy this car back, I've changed my mind. You're welcome to it. Well, here's a bit of a random thing. Last night I got bored, went and had dinner instead, and started editing the video on the Mini, which you hopefully will watch now. And if you haven't clicked the Skillshare link, do please click the Skillshare link, because it makes a massive difference to the channel and, you know, future things we can do. But yeah, anyhow, this morning I came out, got a bottle of carb cleaner, because what you can do is by squirting something like carb cleaner or Easy Start into the air intake, you can make it run on those fumes, and that will then give you an idea of whether you've got spark, timing, compression, and you can find out whether it's a fuel delivery or other problem that you've got going on. So, just off camera, just because I was, you know, impatient, I just squirted a bunch of this stuff down into the air cleaner, went into the car, turned the key, and what do you know? It's running. I don't know what the real problem is. I don't know if it just needed a bit of time to settle. Do ECUs have to get comfortable, like when you put fish into a new tank or something? I don't know. Anyway, this has been running long enough not to be running on vapours anymore, so it would appear I now have a functioning Alfa 145. Now, by the time you see this, hopefully, depending on when I put this video out, I will have had an aftermarket Thatcham immobiliser fitted to this car. So I don't want you to think I'm driving around with no electronic protection on this vehicle, because it is going to be protected. And I'm also going to add, I don't know if I'll do it at the same time, but I would like something that has a key fob that opens the doors, so I'm not going to wear out the lock, because the locks are kind of dicey on these old cars as well, same as on the Mini. Now I'm not going to be showing the installation and the purchase and all that kind of stuff of the immobiliser on camera, for the simple reason that I don't want people to know what's protecting the car. It's just basic security. You don't give away all your aces straight away. So sorry I'm not going to be revealing that, and sorry I'm not going to do a video on it, but that's for the safety and security of the vehicle. It's going to stay that way. Now I'll answer this now because I'm sure there'll be plenty of people asking in the comments about this. The company that did this work was called ECU Decode. I don't have a link to them, just on Google. Just do a search, you'll find them. The cost, including diagnosis, repair and returning post, was about £150 all in. And the turnaround time was incredible. I posted it on one day, it arrived with them the following day, they fixed it same day, and it came back first class. It arrived the day after that. Obviously all the postage I used was recorded, signed for, everything, because if you lose your ECU and your key, you are going to be changing a lot of stuff on the car. So you want the best security. I use like Royal Mail, not any of the other delivery services for that, and everything arrived safely, so there's no problems there, which is good. Now let's go and have a look at the Mini. So here in Quentin's space, it feels like, having had the convertible there for so very long now, is the little Mini, the Y-Reg 2001 Mini Cooper, 202nd car off the line, a pilot build car, which is actually in pretty good shape. Now I pulled the Mini out of the garage for the first time in about 4 months this morning. I hadn't driven it or even opened it really, apart from checking the battery worked, in quite a long time. And the first thing I noticed as soon as I sat in the driver's seat was this droopy headlining. Now last time I mentioned this, which was back when I drove the car last time, funnily enough, a couple of people said, oh, you know, typical bad build quality, blah, 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 headlining falling apart. But the thing is, this car is 20 years old and it's a pilot build. It's little more than a prototype, so I'm going to let this one off. I'm not going to be too harsh on it. Luckily, I do have some trim adhesive left over from when I did the sealing in the Volvo last summer, so it shouldn't be too hard of a job to just pull this back, squirt some adhesive up against the foam, and hopefully that will take. Sticking to my fingers. Of course it is. Don't forget, these cars were virtually hand built, being the very, very first cars to come off the line, and they were still working out what was going to stay on the car. This car's got different pedals, different scuttle grills, they changed all that. This car's got no bracing in the roof, so there are dents in the roof panel because it's so easy to just lean on it and make a handprint in the metal. Right, hopefully that's fixed. Of course, if it isn't, I'll just put that down. No one will ever know. While we're talking about Minis, the new Mini we've got, the Clubman F56, whatever it is, has flashed up that it needs oil. I've looked under the bonnet, there's no clue as to what kind of oil it takes, and there's no dipstick. Just read in the book that it takes a variety of different grades apparently. 530 is potentially one of them. I can do some more reading on that. But then to check the oil, you have to go into My Mini, Vehicle Status, Measure Engine Oil. Oh, but we've been back long enough. The car has been driven this morning quite a long way. I'm crying out loud. But it's not been driving long enough for me to take an oil measurement. That's really helpful. Just stick a bloody dipstick on the thing. Well, that's super helpful. So I guess I'll just put a tiny bit in there and hope it's not too much and is about enough. Then we take it for a drive, because I don't want to drive it any further with too little oil in. Just stick a bloomin' oil dipstick in there. That's just stupid. There can be too much technology on a car. While I'm out here, I will quickly mention the W123, because every time I do any video I get a comment or two saying what's happening with the W123, and the answer is always the same, but I guess people don't see every video. The deal is, it's been undercover throughout the bad winter weather. I can't leave it uncovered during rain, snow, all that kind of thing, because it's not watertight. Water gets in the boot, it gets in the footwells, it will rot the floor out. So I've taken the cover off now, because also what I've found is that the paint blisters, where there's little chips and things, it's getting blisters and surface rust under the covers, which is very bad for it as well. There's no real good solution, but what is pretty awful is where someone has rattle canned the bonnet in the past, and I always knew I was going to have to paint this bonnet because it is awful paint, and it was just massive bubbles. Someone didn't do a very good job of paint prep when they did the paint on this thing, so I'm just going to rattle can some or sandpaper this and zinc undercoat it, because this is just the absolute worst. This has been destroyed by the weather and by poor preparation. Yeah, you just peel this off with your hand. So maybe this will be my first go at painting something again once I've got some cover. But But basically, now the weather is dry, I'm massively overloaded with work at the moment, trying to get YouTube stuff done and work stuff done. But the first thing I need to do is get this wing and the brakes sorted out on this car. And get it under cover, because being outside is being really, really bad for it. It needs to be in a garage or a barn or something as fast as possible. So I'm hoping, I've got a couple of leads on barns now, but nothing's really come to anything yet. But this needs to be indoors very soon. Now finally we get back to the Volvo, because there's one last thing I didn't do on this. When I was doing the brake bleeding the other day, I don't know why I didn't think of it at the time. Lots of people said on the comments, why didn't I remove the bleed thingy that wasn't bleeding and see if it's blocked, because it probably is. And I was going to go and grab an 11mm spanner and do that now. What I did just notice though, I think this is where I splashed some brake fluid on this there suspension bar thingamajig, and it's taken it back to the metal. I know stuff's corrosive, but I didn't even notice I'd spilt this on here, and it's taken the paint clean off. Well, I just pushed the pedal and it appears nothing's come out of here, so something's definitely blocked up in there. There we go. That does look kind of clogged up. I don't know what that is. It's a creamy coloured goop. Whether that'll make any difference to it or not. Oh, I can see through it now. I couldn't see through it before. Whether that'll work now or not, I don't know. Right, so giving this one more whack, having given it a bit of a prod and a clear out, and I can say it's made no difference. I'm going to have to go and get a new rubber flexi hose, I think, which I guess means changing all six actually. Right, I will leave this video here. We've done a little bit of tinkering on 3 cars so far today, so 3 successes. As you can see in the thumbnail and the photo at the beginning, we've got 3 working retro cars now, taxed driving on the road for the month of, what month are we in? May, aren't we? Got the Mini, the Volvo, the Alfa, all looking good, driving well. The Coupe, the Tomcat, which is a car I've ignored for a while, it's under a cover at a friend's house, and I'm debating whether to tax it for this month or not, because I've got 3 cars which I've barely driven as it is to try and get out and use. So I might leave that on off the road for another 4 weeks and then tax it for June, but it seems a shame leaving it sat not used. I've got 4 brand new tyres on it just where I parked it, so there'll be a flat spotting up before I've even had a chance to drive them. Finally, I will say, the thing with having multiple cars that are on the road and long-term projects like this is that the long-term projects always get stuck to the back of the queue. People were asking about the V8, people are asking about the W123. The problem is you have cars that you want to be driving and they're out there taxed, insured, and good to go, but then have a problem or need a service or some other little minor niggle. They kind of wind up taking priority because you can actually get out and drive them, whereas these things, they're not driving anywhere regardless, they're not going any place. So these long-termers just wind up just getting stuck to the back of the queue, which is a real pain and really annoying for me as much as it is for you. But I did make a start on this one, then there was something that wasn't 100% right and it caused me further grief. And I know it's going to be a pain to niggle it way around and fix it, but I will be back on this one hopefully later this week, and maybe we'll get a V8 video end of the week. Fingers crossed. Right, thank you for watching. As always, merch for Furious Driving is available on Redbubble. The woolly hats, if it does turn chilly again, are available on the link in the description below. And if you're not a Patreon or a channel member, then please do consider joining it, because it helps us create the content as we go forward. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. Thank you for watching. Join me again next time doing something else. Take care, everyone.